Imagine having a garden that keeps feeding you year after year without needing to replant. No endless seed packets, no digging rows every spring, just delicious vegetables that come back on their own. That's the magic of perennial crops. So in this video, I'm going to show you 20 reliable and productive perennial vegetables that you can grow at home for endless harvests year after year. The first perennial we have to mention is asparagus, the king of low-maintenance vegetables and one of the most rewarding crops you can ever grow. Once established, a single asparagus bed can keep producing tender, flavorful spears for 20 years or more. Freshly harvested asparagus tastes nothing like what you find in the store. It's sweeter, juicier, and far more delicate when eaten just minutes after cutting. Asparagus loves full sun and rich, well-draining soil with a neutral to slightly alkaline pH between 6.5 and 7.5. It performs best in cooler or temperate climates where it can go dormant in winter and return even stronger in spring. The top varieties to grow at home are Jersey Knight for its high yield and disease resistance, Mary Washington for its classic flavor, and Purple Passion for its mild sweetness and vibrant color. To plant, start with 1-year-old crowns instead of seeds for a quicker harvest. Dig a trench 8 inches deep and 12 inches wide, spacing rows 3 feet apart. Spread the roots out like a fan, leaving about 18 inches between crowns. Cover with 2 inches of soil at first, watering well. As shoots appear, continue adding soil until the trench is filled. Once established, asparagus doesn't like to be disturbed, so pick a permanent spot where it can stay for years. If you're growing in containers, choose large, deep pots at least 18 inches deep and wide. Fill them with compost-rich soil and ensure good drainage to prevent rot. Harvest lightly in the second year after planting, cutting the spears when they reach about 8 inches tall and just before the tips open. Always stop harvesting after 6 to 8 weeks to let the plant recover and store energy for next year's crop. Here's a pro tip. Mulch heavily with compost or straw in late fall. This feeds the soil, keeps weeds down, and protects the crowns from freezing, guaranteeing an even stronger harvest next spring. The next perennial we have to mention is sorrel, a vibrant leafy green that brings a burst of citrusy brightness to the garden year after year. It's one of the earliest greens to emerge in spring and one of the easiest to grow. Fresh sorrel has a tangy lemon flavor that's perfect for soups, sauces, and salads, a taste that store-bought greens can't even come close to matching. Sorrel thrives in full sun to partial shade and grows well in cool to mild climates. It prefers fertile, well-draining soil that stays consistently moist. Once established, it's almost indestructible, returning every spring with fresh leaves. The two best varieties for home gardeners are French sorrel, which has soft, tender leaves and a smooth tang, and red-veined sorrel, which has striking crimson veins and a slightly sharper flavor. To plant, sow seeds directly into the soil in early spring or late summer. Plant them 1/2 inch deep and 12 inches apart. If you prefer a head start, you can also grow seedlings indoors and transplant them once they have 2 or 3 sets of leaves. Water regularly to keep the soil moist, and remove flower stalks as they appear to encourage more leafy growth. Sorrel grows beautifully in containers too. Choose pots at least 12 inches deep with good drainage and rich potting soil. It even does well indoors near a sunny window, making it a versatile choice for small space gardeners. Harvest young leaves once they reach 4 to 6 inches long by snipping them from the outer edges, allowing new growth to continue from the center. Regular picking keeps the plant productive all season long. And just a word of advice, divide your sorrel every 3 to 4 years in early spring. This refreshes the plants, prevents overcrowding, and gives you more starts to expand your patch, ensuring a steady supply of bright, tangy greens for years to come. The third perennial we have to mention is artichoke, a striking and highly productive plant that brings both beauty and flavor to any garden. Homegrown artichokes have a tender, buttery texture and a rich, nutty taste that store-bought ones can't touch. When harvested fresh and cooked within hours, the difference in flavor is remarkable. Artichokes thrive in warm, sunny climates with mild winters and well-drained soil that's rich in organic matter. They love consistent moisture, but dislike soggy conditions. If you live in a cooler region, you can still grow them as long as you provide some winter protection, or grow them in large containers that can be moved indoors when temperatures drop. The best varieties for home gardens include Green Globe, Imperial Star, and Purple Italian, all of which are known for their large, flavorful buds and reliability in small spaces. To plant, start with rooted crowns in early spring or late fall. Set them about 3 feet apart to give the wide leaves plenty of space to expand. Dig holes 12 inches deep and mix compost into the soil before planting. Water regularly during the growing season to keep the soil evenly moist. For container growing, choose a pot at least 20 inches wide and deep with excellent drainage. Artichokes have extensive root systems, so larger is always better. Fertilize with compost tea or organic fertilizer every few weeks once active growth begins. Harvest artichokes when the buds are firm and tightly closed, cutting them about an inch below the base with a sharp knife. If you let 1 or 2 flowers bloom, you'll be rewarded with stunning purple thistle-like blossoms that attract pollinators. Here's a pro tip. After harvesting, cut the plant back to a few inches above the soil and mulch heavily. This encourages strong regrowth and multiple harvests in the following seasons, keeping your artichoke bed productive for years. And the next perennial on the list is the Jerusalem artichoke, also called sunchoke. Despite the name, it's not related to regular artichokes at all, but is actually a type of sunflower grown for its edible tubers. What makes this plant so appealing is how effortlessly it grows. Once planted, it comes back year after year, producing crisp, nutty, slightly sweet roots that taste a bit like a cross between potatoes and water chestnuts. Jerusalem artichokes thrive in full sun and well-draining soil, but are surprisingly tolerant of poor conditions. They can handle sandy, loamy, or even slightly clay soils as long as they don't stay soggy. The plants can grow 8 to 10 feet tall, forming dense, leafy clusters that provide both privacy and beauty in the garden. For variety, go with Stampede or Fuseau, which are both known for smooth, plump tubers that are easy to clean and harvest. To plant, start with fresh tubers rather than seeds. Plant them in early spring about 4 inches deep and 12 to 18 inches apart in loose soil. Water well after planting and keep the soil evenly moist during the growing season. Once established, Jerusalem artichokes need very little care. In fact, they can spread rapidly, so it's a good idea to dedicate a separate bed or use deep containers to keep them contained. For container growing, choose pots at least 18 inches deep to give the tubers room to expand. A mix of compost and sandy soil works best. Fertilizer isn't usually necessary, but a light top dressing of compost mid-season can boost yields. Harvest after the first frost when the foliage dies back. The cold improves the flavor and sweetness of the tubers. Dig gently with a fork or your hands, leaving a few behind in the soil so they can regrow next year. And a little tip you deserve to know is that you should store freshly harvested tubers in slightly damp sand or soil in a cool, dark place. This keeps them crisp and flavorful for several months, a natural root cellar approach that preserves your harvest perfectly. The fifth perennial we have to mention is sweet potato, one of the most generous and reliable crops you can grow at home. Although it's often treated as an annual, sweet potatoes can actually be grown as perennials in warm regions, producing fresh tubers year after year with little effort. The taste of homegrown sweet potatoes is unmatched, smoother, sweeter, and richer than anything you'll find in stores. Sweet potatoes thrive in full sun and loose, well-drained soil rich in organic matter. They love warmth, so aim for daytime temperatures above 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The best varieties for home gardens include Beauregard, Jewel, and Okinawan Purple, which are known for their excellent yields and vibrant color. To plant, start with healthy slips. Those are the rooted shoots that grow from mature sweet potatoes. You can grow your own slips by placing a sweet potato half in water until it sprouts, or buy pre-started ones from a nursery. Plant slips 12 inches apart in raised beds or large containers, burying them up to their first leaves. Keep the soil consistently moist until the plants take off, then water once or twice a week. Sweet potatoes grow well in containers too. Use pots at least 12 inches deep and 20 inches wide, filled with loose soil and compost. As the vines spread, you can gently train them along trellises or let them trail over the pot's edge. Harvest usually comes about 3 to 4 months after planting, once the leaves begin to yellow. Loosen the soil carefully and lift the tubers by hand to avoid bruising them. Cure them in a warm, dry spot for about 10 days to develop sweetness and thicker skins for storage. A gardener's secret for this plant is to replant a few of the smaller tubers or vine cuttings right after harvest instead of storing them. In warm climates, this keeps your sweet potato bed growing continuously, a true perennial cycle that gives you fresh roots year-round. And the sixth perennial worth adding to your garden is horseradish, a hardy root vegetable that delivers fiery flavor and long-lasting returns. Once you plant it, you'll have fresh horseradish for years, and the taste is leagues beyond the store-bought jarred kind. Freshly grated horseradish has a sharp, vibrant heat and a crisp texture that quickly fades if processed or stored too long, which is why growing your own makes all the difference. Horseradish thrives in full sun to partial shade and prefers rich, well-drained, loamy soil with plenty of organic matter. It's a cool season crop that can handle frost and even improves in flavor after a cold spell. Varieties like MIgardener Kren and Bohemian horseradish are reliable choices known for their strong roots and consistent regrowth. To plant, start with root cuttings called sets, about 8 to 10 inches long. Plant them at a 45-degree angle with the top of the cutting 2 inches below the surface. Space them about 18 inches apart to give roots room to spread. Keep the soil evenly moist, especially during the early growing period. Once established, horseradish can handle short dry spells, but performs best with regular watering. For container growing, use a deep pot, at least 18 inches, to accommodate the long roots. The key to container success is excellent drainage, so mix sand or perlite into your soil. Harvest horseradish in late fall after the leaves die back, or in early spring before new shoots emerge. Loosen the soil around the plant and pull out the thickest roots for use, leaving smaller ones to regrow. The remaining roots will send up new shoots the following season, keeping your supply going indefinitely. Here's a pro tip. To keep horseradish from taking over your garden, sink a bottomless container or bucket into the ground and plant inside it. This limits its spread while still giving the roots plenty of depth to grow. A simple trick that turns horseradish into a tidy, controlled perennial. The seventh perennial we have to mention is perennial spinach, one of the most dependable leafy greens you can grow. Regular spinach tends to bolt quickly in heat, but perennial types like Malabar spinach and New Zealand spinach thrive year after year, especially in warm climates. Their flavor is mild and slightly salty, and when eaten fresh, the leaves are far more tender and juicy than store-bought spinach, which often loses its texture after just a few days in the fridge. These plants love warm weather and full sun, but can also handle partial shade. Malabar spinach is a climbing vine, so it does well on trellises or fences, while New Zealand spinach forms a spreading mound close to the soil. Both prefer rich, well-drained soil mixed with compost and perform best when the soil stays consistently moist. To plant, start seeds indoors 4 to 6 weeks before the last frost or sow directly outdoors once the soil warms up. Plant seeds half an inch deep, spacing them 12 to 18 inches apart. If you're growing Malabar spinach, provide a sturdy trellis early so the vines can climb as they grow. Keep the soil evenly moist through the growing season and mulch around the base to retain moisture and reduce weeds. For container growing, pick a wide pot at least 12 inches deep. Use high-quality potting soil mixed with compost and make sure to water regularly. These spinaches love humidity and warmth, so indoor setups with good light or greenhouse environments work perfectly. You can begin harvesting when the leaves are about 4 inches long. Pinch or cut the outer leaves first, leaving the inner ones to continue growing. With regular picking, the plants will stay lush and productive for months. One insider trick worth knowing is to trim the plants back hard in late summer, then feed with compost tea. This refreshes growth and triggers new shoots, giving you another flush of tender leaves before the season ends. And the next perennial is perennial onions, a fantastic addition to any home garden because they practically take care of themselves. Unlike regular onions that need replanting every season, these come back year after year, multiplying naturally. The flavor is rich and slightly milder than store-bought onions, with a crisp bite when fresh and a subtle sweetness when cooked. Having them right outside your door means you'll never have to buy onions again. Perennial onion varieties come in several types. The most popular are Egyptian walking onions, which form small bulb clusters on top of their stalks, Welsh onions that look like thick scallions, and potato onions that multiply underground. All thrive in full sun and loose, well-drained soil rich in compost. They're cold-hardy, drought-tolerant, and ideal for gardeners who prefer low-maintenance crops. To plant, separate the bulbs or clusters and space them 6 to 8 inches apart, planting them about 2 inches deep. If starting with seeds, sow in early spring and keep the soil moist until established. Once planted, they will spread naturally, creating small clusters you can divide every few years. Water moderately and feed once or twice a season with compost or organic fertilizer. Perennial onions grow beautifully in containers too. Choose a deep pot, at least 10 inches wide, and plant 3 to 4 bulbs per pot. Keep them in a sunny spot and water when the soil begins to dry out. Harvest green shoots as needed by snipping them near the base, and dig up whole bulbs in late summer or early fall when the top's yellow. Always leave a few bulbs in the soil to regrow for next year. Here's a pro tip. Harvest the top sets from Egyptian walking onions and replant them right away. This maintains a continuous cycle of fresh growth, letting you enjoy both green onions and bulbs throughout the year without any gaps in production. The 9th perennial we have to highlight is watercress, a fast-growing aquatic green that's both nutrient-dense and full of flavor. Fresh watercress has a peppery, slightly tangy bite, much like arugula, but juicier and crisper. Store-bought watercress wilts and loses flavor quickly, while homegrown leaves stay vibrant and crunchy right up until harvest. It's one of the healthiest greens you can grow, packed with vitamins A, C, and K. Watercress thrives in cool, moist environments and loves moving water or very damp soil. It can grow in shallow trays, ponds, or containers designed to stay wet. The best varieties for home gardeners include aqua largeleaf and broadleaf cress, both of which produce generous harvests and regrow quickly after cutting. To plant, scatter seeds thinly over the surface of moist soil and press them in lightly without covering too much. Keep the growing area consistently wet by setting the container in a shallow tray of water or placing it near a slow-moving stream or pond. The ideal growing temperature is between 50 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. In warm regions, provide partial shade to keep it from bolting. Watercress can be grown in containers indoors year-round. Use a wide pot or plastic tub about 6 inches deep, filled with a mix of compost and sand. Keep the soil submerged just enough to stay constantly wet but not stagnant. Change the water weekly to maintain freshness. Harvest by snipping the stems just above the waterline once they reach 4 to 6 inches long. Frequent harvesting encourages new growth and keeps the leaves tender. If allowed to flower, watercress will self-seed and spread quickly, making it a near-effortless perennial. If you really want to take it up a notch, try this. Grow watercress alongside slow-moving fish or aquatic snails if you have a pond set up. Their natural movement keeps the water oxygenated and nutrient-rich, which makes your watercress grow thicker, greener, and more flavorful. The next perennial on the list is tree collards, a powerhouse green that grows taller each year and produces leaves for many seasons. Imagine kale, but instead of replanting every year, you get a hardy, leafy tree that just keeps on giving. The flavor is similar to collard greens or kale, but milder and sweeter, especially after cool weather. Freshly picked leaves have a tender texture and cook beautifully without turning bitter. Tree collards thrive in mild climates with full sun to partial shade and prefer well-drained, fertile soil rich in compost. They can handle light frost, but perform best in areas that don't drop below 20 degrees Fahrenheit for extended periods. In cooler zones, you can grow them in containers and bring them indoors during harsh winters. Popular varieties include the purple tree collard, known for its beautiful deep color and sweeter taste, and the green tree collard, which is slightly hardier. To plant, start from cuttings rather than seeds. Cut a healthy 12-inch section from an established plant, remove the lower leaves, and insert the stem 6 inches deep into moist soil. Keep it well watered for the first few weeks until roots develop. Space plants 3 feet apart to give them room to spread and form sturdy, woody stems. For container growing, use a pot at least 18 inches deep with rich soil and good drainage. Provide a stake or trellis for support as the plant grows taller, since the stems can become top-heavy. You can harvest leaves once they reach full size by picking from the bottom upward. Always leave several young leaves at the top to encourage continuous growth. Tree collards can produce for 5 to 10 years with minimal care. Something experienced growers swear by is to prune the tops yearly in spring to encourage branching. Each cut point will sprout new shoots, giving you more harvestable leaves and preventing the plant from growing too tall to manage. Regular pruning transforms one sturdy stem into a lush, multi-branched collard tree that keeps your kitchen stocked year-round. And the 11th perennial we have to mention is sea kale, an underrated gem that deserves a spot in every long-term food garden. This coastal plant has a mild, nutty flavor, similar to asparagus and broccoli combined, with a touch of sweetness. It's far superior to the tough, fibrous versions sometimes found in specialty markets. When harvested young, the shoots and leaves are tender, flavorful, and full of nutrients. Sea kale is native to cool coastal regions and thrives in full sun with well-draining, sandy or gravelly soil. It's extremely hardy, tolerating both salt spray and frost, making it perfect for gardeners near the sea or in temperate climates. If you're looking for reliable varieties, Cram maritima is the classic culinary type, known for its thick leaves and high productivity. To plant, start with root. Cuttings or crowns rather than seeds, since they establish faster. Space plants 2 to 3 feet apart, as they can spread wide once mature. Plant crowns just below the soil surface in early spring or fall and water regularly until they're settled. Once established, sea kale is drought-tolerant and nearly maintenance-free. It can be grown in large containers too, at least 16 inches deep, with a mix of sandy soil and compost. In pots, make sure drainage is excellent and avoid overwatering. The roots are strong and prefer to stay on the drier side once mature. Harvest the young shoots in spring as soon as they emerge, cutting them at the base while they're still tender. The leaves can also be eaten throughout the growing season, and the flower buds can be steamed just like broccoli. For the best flavor, blanch the shoots by covering them with a bucket or forcing pot for a few weeks before harvest. To get the best results at home, remember to mulch heavily with compost or seaweed each fall. The extra nutrients mimic the plant's native coastal conditions and ensure vigorous regrowth every spring, giving you a dependable gourmet perennial for years to come. The next perennial we have to mention is rhubarb, a garden classic that provides one of the earliest harvests each spring. Though it's often used like a fruit, rhubarb is actually a hardy vegetable with long crimson stalks that have a bright, tart flavor. Freshly harvested rhubarb is far superior to store-bought, tender, juicy, and bursting, with that signature tang that's perfect for pies, jams, and sauces. Rhubarb thrives in cool to temperate climates and prefers full sun and rich, moist, well-draining soil. It loves compost and manure, so give it plenty of organic matter when planting. The best varieties for home growers include Victoria for its sweetness, Crimson Red for its deep color, and Canada Red for its rich flavor and strong yields. To plant, start with crowns in early spring before growth begins. Dig holes about a foot deep and 12 inches wide, spacing each plant 3 feet apart. Mix compost into the bottom of each hole. Set the crown so the buds are just below the soil surface, and backfill gently. Water thoroughly after planting and keep the soil consistently moist, especially in the first year. Rhubarb also grows beautifully in containers as long as you give it space. Choose a pot at least 20 inches deep and wide, with nutrient-rich soil and good drainage. It's a striking plant for patios or garden borders, and once established, it can live for more than a decade. Harvest sparingly in the first year to let the plants strengthen. After that, pull stalks from the base by twisting gently instead of cutting, which encourages new shoots to form. Never eat the leaves. They contain oxalic acid and are toxic. Here's a pro tip. Divide mature rhubarb plants every 4 to 5 years in early spring. This rejuvenates their vigor, increases productivity, and gives you extra crowns to plant elsewhere or share with friends, keeping your rhubarb patch thriving for generations. And the next perennial on our list is Good King Henry, a forgotten old-world green that deserves a comeback in modern gardens. Often called poor man's asparagus, this hardy perennial produces tender shoots in spring and spinach-like leaves all summer. The flavor is rich and earthy, like a cross between spinach and chard, and freshly picked leaves have a depth that store-bought greens can't match. Good King Henry thrives in full sun to partial shade and prefers fertile, well-drained soil with plenty of compost mixed in. It's a low-maintenance plant once established and can survive drought and frost with ease, making it perfect for temperate climates. To plant, sow seeds in early spring after the last frost, or start them indoors a few weeks earlier. The seeds can be slow to germinate, so soak them in warm water overnight before planting to speed things up. Sow about ½ inch deep, and once the seedlings reach 3 inches tall, thin them to 12 inches apart. Water regularly in the first few months to help them settle in, and mulch around the base to retain moisture and suppress weeds. Good King Henry can also be grown in medium-sized pots or planters at least 12 inches deep. It will grow happily on balconies or patios as long as it receives 4 to 6 hours of sunlight daily. Harvest young leaves once the plant is well established, usually in its second year. Cut the outer leaves first, leaving the center to regrow. The spring shoots can be harvested like asparagus. Simply snap or cut them off at ground level when they're about 6 inches tall. Here's a pro tip. After harvesting shoots in spring, feed your plants with compost tea or diluted liquid fertilizer. This gives them the boost they need to produce a long, steady supply of tender leaves all summer, ensuring a healthy and productive patch that comes back stronger each year. The next perennial we have to highlight is lovage, an aromatic herb that grows tall and bold while delivering a flavor that's like celery, but deeper, spicier, and far more complex. It's a true culinary powerhouse because every part of the plant is edible: the leaves, stems, roots, and even the seeds. Once you grow lovage at home, you'll quickly realize how flat and flavorless store-bought celery tastes by comparison. Lovage thrives in full sun to partial shade and prefers moist, fertile soil rich in organic matter. It's a hardy plant that tolerates cold winters, often dying back in the frost, only to shoot up vigorously again in spring. The best varieties for home gardeners are plain lovage, Levisticum officinale, and Maggie plant, both known for their intense aroma and strong growth. To plant, start with seeds or root divisions in early spring. Sow seeds about ½ an inch deep and space plants 18 to 24 inches apart. If starting from a root division, set it just below the soil surface, water well, and keep the soil consistently moist during the first season. Lovage can grow up to 6 feet tall, so give it plenty of room to spread and good airflow between plants. It grows well in containers too, but you'll need a deep pot at least 18 inches tall to accommodate the large roots. Keep it in a sunny spot and water regularly, especially in dry weather. Harvest young leaves once the plant reaches 12 inches in height by snipping them from the outer edges. You can also harvest stems to use as flavorful celery substitutes and seeds in late summer for seasoning. The roots can be dug and dried for use in soups or teas. Here's a pro tip. Cut the plant back to half its size after flowering to encourage fresh leaf growth and extend your harvest window. A quick trim, combined with a light compost dressing, will send up new shoots in just a few weeks, keeping your lovage lush and productive well into autumn. And the 15th perennial we have to mention is ramps, also known as wild leeks. They're one of the most sought-after spring vegetables because of their rich, garlicky onion flavor that chefs love. Fresh ramps are incredibly aromatic, with a taste that lands somewhere between a sweet onion and mild garlic. And once you grow them at home, you'll never want to hunt for them in the woods again. Ramps thrive in shady woodland-style environments with moist, rich soil high in organic matter. They grow naturally in forests, so if you can mimic those conditions in your garden, they'll come back reliably every spring. They're best suited for cool, temperate climates where winters provide the chill they need to rest and reset each year. To plant, start with bulbs or seeds in early fall. If using bulbs, plant them about 2 inches deep and 4 inches apart in well-drained soil, covering with a thick layer of leaf mulch to hold moisture. Keep the soil consistently damp but not waterlogged. If planting from seed, expect slower results. Ramps can take over a year to germinate, but once they establish, they spread steadily to form a self-sustaining patch. Ramps can even be grown in containers as long as you provide deep pots with rich, humus-filled soil and partial shade. They're slow-growing, but patience pays off with a harvest that can last a lifetime. Harvest ramps once the leaves reach 6 to 8 inches tall in early spring. Use scissors or a knife to cut a few leaves per plant, leaving some untouched so they can regrow and replenish the bulbs. Over-harvesting can weaken your patch, so sustainable cutting is key. Here's a pro tip. Plant ramps under deciduous trees like maples or oaks. The trees provide shade in summer, but allow plenty of light through in spring, which perfectly mimics the plant's natural forest rhythm and helps your ramp patch expand more quickly each year. The next perennial we have to highlight is daylily, one of the most beautiful and surprisingly edible plants you can grow. Every part of the daylily, from the buds to the flowers and even the tender shoots, is edible and delicious. The unopened buds taste a bit like asparagus with a hint of green bean, while the blossoms are slightly sweet and crisp. Having daylilies in your garden means you're growing food and beauty at the same time. Daylilies thrive in full sun to partial shade and are extremely hardy, tolerating drought, poor soil, and even neglect. They prefer well-draining soil, but will grow almost anywhere once established. The most popular edible varieties are Hemerocallis fulva and Hemerocallis citrina, which produce abundant flowers with mild, pleasant flavor and tender texture. To plant, dig a hole wide enough to fit the roots comfortably, about 12 inches across and 8 inches deep. Spread the roots out, position the crown about an inch below the soil surface, and backfill with rich soil mixed with compost. Water thoroughly after planting. Space each clump about 18 inches apart to allow them to spread naturally over time. Daylilies also grow very well in containers, making them perfect for patios or balconies. Use large pots, at least 12 inches deep, filled with nutrient-rich potting mix. Keep them in bright sunlight and water whenever the top inch of soil feels dry. Harvest unopened buds when they are 2 to 3 inches long for the best flavor, or pick open flowers in the morning when they are fresh. The buds can be sautéed, steamed, or even battered and fried. Always harvest moderately, leaving plenty of flowers to feed the plant for next season. Here's a pro tip. Divide your daylily clumps every 3 to 4 years in early spring or late fall. This rejuvenates the plants, boosts flowering, and gives you extra starts to expand your edible flower patch or share with others. A single planting can keep producing for decades with just a little seasonal care. And the next perennial we have to mention is ostrich fern, famous for producing delicious fiddleheads each spring. These curled green shoots are a delicacy, with a flavor often compared to a mix of asparagus and green beans, but with a slightly nutty undertone. Freshly harvested fiddleheads are tender and crisp, a far cry from the mushy, over-processed ones you might find in stores. Once you establish a patch, this fern will feed you for decades with minimal care. Ostrich ferns thrive in partial to full shade and prefer moist, rich soil with plenty of organic matter. They naturally grow along stream banks and in forest understories, so if you have a shady, damp area in your yard, that's the perfect spot for them. These ferns are hardy in cool to temperate climates and tolerate freezing winters easily. To plant, start with rhizomes or young ferns in early spring or fall. Dig a hole about 6 inches deep and wide enough for the roots to spread comfortably. Space plants about 2 to 3 feet apart since they'll expand gradually over time. Water well after planting and mulch thickly with compost or shredded leaves to hold in moisture. Once established, they spread slowly through underground rhizomes, forming natural colonies. You can grow ostrich ferns in large containers too, provided they stay evenly moist. Use deep pots with a rich humus-based mix and place them in partial shade, where they'll get bright but indirect light. Harvest fiddleheads in early spring when the shoots are still tightly coiled and about 2 inches tall. Use a sharp knife or pinch them off at the base, taking only a few from each plant so it continues to thrive. Wash thoroughly before cooking, as the outer coating can be bitter. Here's a pro tip. Feed your ferns each fall with a fresh layer of compost or decomposed leaf mold. This replicates the natural forest floor and keeps the soil rich and moist, ensuring bigger, tastier fiddleheads every spring without any extra effort. The next perennial we have to highlight is wasabi, a prized and challenging plant that rewards patience with one of the most unique flavors in the gardening world. Fresh wasabi root has a clean, sharp heat that's nothing like the harsh burn of the imitation versions made from horseradish and mustard powder. When freshly grated, it delivers a complex herbal spice that fades within minutes, making homegrown wasabi a completely different experience from anything you can buy. Wasabi grows naturally along cool, shaded mountain streams in Japan, so your goal is to recreate those conditions at home. It thrives in temperatures between 45 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, with high humidity and gentle, consistent moisture. It prefers dappled shade and rich, slightly acidic soil that drains well but never dries out. For variety, Mizuma and Duruma are the most reliable types for home gardeners, both known for their strong flavor and adaptability. To plant, start with healthy plantlets or divisions from a nursery. Space them 12 inches apart and plant so that the crown sits just above the soil surface. Keep the soil evenly moist at all times. A steady trickle of water or frequent misting works best. Avoid standing water, which can rot the roots. Wasabi grows slowly, taking about 18 to 24 months to produce mature rhizomes, but the leaves and stems are also edible during that time. If you're short on space, wasabi can be grown in containers. Choose a deep, wide pot with drainage holes and fill it with rich potting soil mixed with compost and perlite. Place the container in a cool, shaded spot or under a shade cloth. Harvest rhizomes when they reach about 6 inches long by pulling up the entire plant. Trim off the leaves and wash gently. The leaves themselves can be used in salads or stir-fries for a mild wasabi kick. Here's a pro tip. Grow wasabi near a small water feature, like a pond or fountain, to maintain constant humidity. The gentle airflow and moisture around the water's source perfectly mimic its native habitat and help your wasabi thrive with less daily maintenance. And the next perennial we have to mention is perennial basil, a warm weather favorite that brings both flavor and fragrance to the garden year after year. While most basil types are annuals, several perennial varieties thrive for multiple seasons in the right conditions. The most popular is African blue basil, which has purple-tinted leaves and a spicy, clove-like aroma, along with Thai basil, known for its bold, sweet flavor that intensifies with age. Both varieties outperform store-bought basil in freshness, aroma, and oil content. Perennial basil loves warmth, full sun, and well-draining soil rich in compost. It does best in climates where temperatures rarely drop below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. If you live in a cooler area, basil can easily be overwintered indoors on a sunny windowsill or under grow lights. The key is consistent warmth, bright light, and moderate watering. Basil dislikes soggy soil, but also shouldn't dry out completely. To plant, start with cuttings or nursery transplants. Set them about 12 inches apart in rich soil, burying them just deep enough to cover the lower stem nodes. Water thoroughly after planting and pinch the tips regularly to encourage branching and bushy growth. Mulch around the base to keep moisture even and protect the roots from heat stress. Perennial basil also grows wonderfully in containers. Use pots at least 12 inches wide with excellent drainage and feed every few weeks with compost tea or diluted organic fertilizer to maintain strong leaf growth. Indoors, rotate the pot occasionally so the plant grows evenly. You can harvest basil continuously once the plants are established by snipping individual leaves or cutting whole stems just above a leaf node. Frequent harvesting actually keeps the plant productive by stimulating new growth. Here's a pro tip. Before cold weather arrives, take a few stem cuttings and root them in water on a sunny windowsill. This gives you a backup supply that can continue growing indoors through winter. When spring returns, transplant the strongest starts back outside, ensuring a permanent, thriving basil cycle that never truly ends. The final perennial we have to highlight is ginger, one of the most satisfying and productive crops you can grow in containers or garden beds. Freshly harvested ginger has a bright, citrusy warmth that's far more aromatic and flavorful than the dried or store-bought kind. The rhizomes are plump, juicy, and smooth, and the young ginger, with its thin skin and mild taste, is especially prized for cooking and teas. Once established, ginger keeps multiplying below the surface, giving you an ongoing supply for years. Ginger thrives in warm, humid conditions and filtered sunlight, mimicking the tropical environments it comes from. Ideal temperatures range between 70 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. The soil should be loose, rich, and, Well draining, with plenty of compost mixed in. In cooler regions, you can easily grow it in pots indoors, using grow lights or a sunny window to provide warmth and indirect light. To plant, start with plump, organic ginger rhizomes that have visible eyes or buds. Cut them into 2-inch pieces, each with at least one healthy bud, and let them dry for a day before planting. Bury them about 2 inches deep in moist soil, buds facing up, and space them 6 inches apart. Keep the soil consistently damp but not waterlogged. Sprouts usually appear within 2 to 4 weeks, and once they do, feed monthly with compost tea or diluted organic fertilizer. Ginger does very well in wide, shallow containers since the roots spread horizontally. Choose pots at least 12 inches across with drainage holes. Mulch the top to retain humidity and regulate temperature. Harvest begins around 8 to 10 months after planting, once the leaves start yellowing. For tender young ginger, you can dig around the edges after 4 to 5 months and take small sections without disturbing the main plant. Here's a pro tip. After harvesting, replant a few of your healthiest rhizomes immediately in the same soil. Ginger naturally renews itself, so by rotating and replanting continuously, you can maintain a self-sustaining supply that keeps growing. A true kitchen garden perennial that just keeps giving. Thanks for sticking with me through the entire video. If you found this helpful, give it a like, subscribe for more gardening tips, and check out our other videos on growing a better garden.